They move it up over the line. A long pass by Mikhailov didn't work. Cleared in front of the net on the boards. And Philadelphia, two-man break again. A breakaway. He's going raining on goal. Goal! Beautiful goal by the Leafs. Terrific.
Pretty good job of interference run, too, by Gary Dornhofer, but Rick McLeish is an excellent shooter. Not too often, Dennis, you'll see the Soviets get caught like this. Here it comes. What's the interference on the part of the one flyer right there as he moves over at the line. Here's McLeish. Perfect spot.
Hey everybody, it's Isaiah. Just reminding you that FlyersNittyGritty.com and the O&B Puckcast are brought to you by Summit Public Adjusters. Hey, do you have damage to your home? Not sure who to call? We suggest that you call Summit Public Adjusters before your insurance company. Dealing with your insurance company can be very stressful. Let Summit take the stress out of the claims process. From storm damage to your roof, to toilet overflows, to broken pipes and fires, Summit gets you the most money for your repairs. So next time Mother Nature leaves you in need of repairs, call Summit Public Adjusters at 215-752-0560 or visit summitpublicadjusters.com. Licensed in PA and New Jersey. And we are back. It is Isaiah. Welcome to the O&B Puckcast, episode number 138. The Flyers have lost 6 in a row, and, well, we're going to talk about that with our panel and our esteemed guests. Just a reminder, the O&B Puckcast can be found on Twitter at O&B Puck, at O&B Puck. And if you'd be so kind to subscribe or follow, depending on the platform. We're on 12 or 13 different platforms. And it's really important. There's never a charge. But if you do that, then it'll move us up the charts when people are looking for Philadelphia Flyer podcast. We appreciate the show's growth, and you're part of that. So without any further ado, let me introduce the panel. First off, Chef B, how are you, man?
Very good. Thank you.
Yes. And as always, with us tonight is the great Dan Silver.
Yeah, I could be doing a little better, quite honestly. But, you know, what are you going to do?
Yeah. What are you going to do? And with us tonight from the beginning, boy, I tell you, he's one of our favorite guests, and I think he qualifies as a maven. If you ask him about something that happened last week or something back in 1975, whether it's a younger player, an older player, a Hall of Famer, it doesn't matter. This guy's got you covered. He's also known on Twitter at Sportsology. We know him as Russ Cohen. How are you?
Good. How are you guys doing?
All right. Well, Russ, the Flyers are going through quite a mess. They are in a spiral of 6 games in a row they have lost. And just some observations and maybe get your comments. The offense is historically bad. They have now gone with a power play that is 5 for its last 50 in the last 16 games. They have a total of 25 goals in their last 14 games. They seem to be unwilling or unable to generate high danger chances, consistently 5-on-5. And in fact, just the other night against the Devils, they were outchanced high danger wise, 18-4. And it just seems now not being able to score is spilling into all areas of their game. And we see a lot of mistakes in their own zone. They're not getting out of their own zone. They're getting destroyed with Corsi over this last 6-game losing streak. And their neutral zone play is not effective either. So what to do, Russ Cohen?
Well, I mean, the first thing I might say is Corsi ever going to be good on a losing streak? Probably not. You could see some positives, I guess, but mostly you're probably not going to. I'll say this. So we'll start with the power play. I think the power play, because Ivan Provorov is not a good point guy. Yes, he has an accurate enough shot to get it in there, but the problem is with all those other players on there, he's very predictable passing. And after like the first 30, 40 seconds, he's kind of out of moves on what to do on the power play. It should be Keith Yandle. I don't care that Keith Yandle had a couple turnovers, but again, Keith Yandle is sort of getting the same treatment from AV that he got in New York when he was there. Keith Yandle on power play too, what does he get, 23 seconds, sometimes 30? I mean, he doesn't get a lot of time. He is the most creative guy on the power play. He doesn't have a booming shot like Ryan Ellis, but Ryan Ellis isn't around, so there's nothing you can do about that. But he is the best guy for the point right now and probably for the season. Ellis is good for that, but again, when you bring back Ellis, you are going to have to watch how many minutes you're going to give him because, again, he went out pretty quick last time. Provorov's play, though, I think is suffering 5-on-5 because of the stress of him not performing well on the power play. I think it's now become like a mental thing with him because, now he's making mistakes 5-on-5 that I never used to see. So I think that's the biggest problem on the team because, again, you see the momentum changer. I did joke the other night when who was it? Carolina that challenged? No, not Carolina. Who was it that challenged? Maybe it was Carolina. It was Carolina that challenged.
Yeah, the first goal of the game.
Right. They lost the challenge, so then the Flyers get on the power play, and I looked at Anthony Mingione, who sits next to me, and I said, that seems like kind of a punishment right now, doesn't it? And sure enough, it turned into a negative, right? It turns into a negative momentum swing and a positive for the other team when they kill it off. And again, if it was the kind of power play that really you're hitting a lot of posts, okay. I'm not one that likes to talk about movement because I think you could have all the movement in the world on a power play, but if guys aren't standing in front of the net and getting high danger chances, like you said, it doesn't matter a whole lot. So, but when you are on a team that feels like they could score on the power play and can't even get zone entries can't get an offensive zone entry, and then basically the puck goes down the other end, that's frustrating. And that does work into your psyche. It works against you.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing, it's been kind of building because their process really wasn't that great beforehand. And these injuries are just crushing the Flyers. Whereas if you look around the league with whether it's the coronavirus problems or it's injuries, other teams like Pittsburgh, I mean, they've been dealing a lot better with these kind of circumstances. And here we go again, any kind of adversity, the Flyers don't seem to handle that well, Dan.
Yeah, I got to tell you guys, I'm in a dark spot with the Flyers right now. I'm not optimistic about it. And, for me, having never seen a championship during my lifetime, and that's kind of what you're looking to see, the Hextall era was sort of billed as a quasi rebuild, right? Like, we're not going to totally tank, even though we did get the number 2 overall pick and, didn't really make that good use of it. But it wasn't a complete rebuild, but it was one of these things where you're preaching patience and we've got 8, 9, 10 draft picks a year and we're stockpiling kids and we don't know how they're going to turn out. But the idea is, hey, we might not make the playoffs some years we're going to lose in the first round, but we're going to build a team for the future. And this is the process. And I bought into it. And now I feel like we're in a spot where there's not much light at the end of the tunnel because most of these prospects, we kind of know what they are at this point, right? Like Ivan Provorov, he's a pretty good, NHL defenseman. He's probably a top pairing NHL defenseman, but he's got limitations, right? I mean, he does make a decent amount of mistakes 5-on-5. A couple years ago, he had a really down year where he just made plays that you were like, man, I don't know, maybe the awkward looking mistakes, maybe the hockey IQ is not all there. To me, his best asset is his durability, right? Like we see with Ryan Ellis, who gets injured a lot, what it does to a team. Ivan Provorov, is going to be out there. He can play 27 minutes a game, right? Anyway, we kind of know what he is. Travis Konechny. I kind of feel like, we kind of know what he is at this point. Like, people at one point were like, hey, maybe he'll develop into the next Brad Marchand. I don't think so. Like, I think we kind of know what we've got with Travis Konechny. Guys like Morgan Frost and Cam York, who maybe I had given sort of like A- upside to, and maybe it's still there. I don't know. I'm not sure at this point. You see some other defensemen the same age as Cam York in the AHL putting up bigger numbers. Joel Farabee, I think, is a really good hockey player. Probably not going to become like an elite first line forward. So I feel like we're in a spot where we kind of know where we stand with a lot of these prospects that came through during the Hextall era. There's nothing high end except for maybe Carter Hart. And now we're locked into some contracts that probably aren't going to age very well, like the Couturier contract. He already looks like, I don't know what's going on with him, if he's injured or what's going on, but that'll, we've got him for 7 more years actually 8 more years after this. Kevin Hayes, that contract, I don't know how well that's going to age. Cam Atkinson, kind of the same thing, and Ryan Ellis. So it's like we're spending to the cap. I don't know what we're supposed to do. Like, in the past, when we were in situations like this, I could always kind of like look forward and be like, oh, we've got like 5 to 10 really good prospects coming and the cap situation's okay. Now it's like, what are we going to do? Okay, so if we fire the head coach, like, that's not really going to solve anything to my mind. Like, the team's just not good enough. So I'm kind of, I don't know. Hopefully you guys can maybe tell me I'm wrong or I don't know, but I'm not seeing the optimism that I've had the past number of years, because I don't see it. I feel like a lot of the teams that were below us have moved past us, and they have got high end kids like Jack Hughes or Sebastian Aho, Svechnikov, and it's just like we've kind of been passed by. I don't know what to see moving forward with this team.
Yeah, we got a lot of quantity. We didn't get that kind of quality, Russ.
Well, all right. So I'll talk about a few of the guys, because I don't think Dan's completely off base. Prospect-wise, Cam York, I think people got overly excited about him. I didn't know if he was really going to be a top pairing guy. I always felt like second pairing, to be fair. And if he is, he's going to be a good second pairing guy. So in that regard, I'm not worried about Cam York. I'm fine with him. With Morgan Frost, I do feel like Alain Vigneault is not doing him a good service, because we all saw last year in the bubble, and I was there up close when Frost came in and they paired him with Giroux. It was really good for him, and they didn't do that this time because they don't want to break up a top line that really isn't doing great anyhow. Like, this team isn't scoring. But Vigneault seems to be unwilling to break up that top line. But again, that would have been the best thing to bring Frost in, especially under the circumstances. Like, had they brought him in 3 or 4 games earlier, when you knew Hayes wasn't coming back, he could have eased himself in. Now you brought him back against some of the tougher teams in the league, and you're not putting him with Claude Giroux. I felt like that was a disservice to him, but that's the coach's decision, right? So, and that does play into some of that development, Dan, right? Some of these kids, if they're developing quicker in other places, there's a reason. If you want to know why Brandon Carlo developed so quick, it's because of Zdeno Chara. He helped develop him because he played next to him. Some of those things are big, right, for development. But the Flyers still have some kids. Look, Elliot Denoya has showed a lot. Zade Wisdom is a really good player. I like Ronnie Attard. Ronnie Attard could be a beast, but he's a long-term guy. So they do have guys. Do they have A-plus prospects? Okay, that's where your argument could hold a lot of water, Dan. And because for the A-pluses, I mean, Farabee's the only one that could be an A-plus, and I agree with you that he's probably not a top liner. But I also think he could be a 30-goal scorer. So if he's that, he's pretty close. So I would say he's closest. Konechny is a head scratcher because he was on a trajectory that looked good for like a 65-point guy a year. I don't think he was going to ever be more than that, but also was a guy who lived off his emotions, right? to me, it feels like Vigneault has sucked that emotion from him because you can't take a bad penalty because his team can't fall behind because they can't score. I do feel like that's played into Konechny's game. You guys could tell me if I'm wrong. But I do think like they've taken out a very important element because he doesn't seem to play on the same edge with the same edge that he used to. He's never going to be Marchand. I always tell everybody, you don't have the next Brad Marchand. Nobody does. Because there just isn't another player like him. Nobody is like him. So I always take that out. But I do feel like they maybe took away, the edge in his game. Now, scoring-wise, he should be still scoring more. But he is a guy that kind of has to get fired up in the game. And a lot of times if he gets fired up, he has those multi-goal games. We haven't seen that this year. We haven't seen JVR go to the net. If we're going to talk about JVR's defense making $7 million a year, it's a long year. So that's still a problem that they couldn't get out of. You knew Jake Voracek would do reasonably well somewhere else. You knew that. You also knew he had to get out of Philly. So that was a situation where, okay, sometimes a player just has to leave a town. So I can't fault him for that because Jake was sucking out some of the oxygen just because. He'd always have the puck. He didn't know what to do with the puck. Then nobody knew where to shoot, who was going to shoot. We all lived through that. I get it. Atkinson has been good. Atkinson is not what you would call a star player. He's not. He never was going to be. He isn't that. But he is a good goal scorer. And like most goal scorers, he's going to go through some droughts. And so right now, I want to say, and Dan, you could chime in here. I want to say early on in the season when he was hot, he probably won 3 or 4 games with key goals.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have no problems with Atkinson, and I like a lot of the prospects you mentioned. I just, to me, again, it's like the top end types of guys. I'm trying to see a path for like a Stanley Cup, and it's tough. It's tough to see it, right? I used to be able to see it because I'm like, oh man, Provorov, Sanheim, Myers, like these guys are really good defense prospects, and we've got some good forward prospects, and that's the path to the cup. Like we're going to build this great defense around a phenomenal goaltender, and that's going to get us to the cup. But now I'm like, okay, Myers is gone, and he really didn't fulfill his promise. Sanheim doesn't look like maybe what we thought he was going to be, and so I just, without those top prospects, it just, I don't know if I see it.
Chef?
Yeah, I want to jump in here and just say, I think I know what Dan's talking about. I think he's saying we have a new GM. He kind of made the changes that he thought were going to be necessary, and we were thinking what we had in the minor leagues to come up and fill that and fill up any holes or be our backup or reinforcements. All these moves were made, and to everybody's credit, it was a lot of moves in the offseason, a lot for one team. And I think we're all in shell shock because we're realizing, hey, it might not be enough, and it's still probably not enough. I mean, we made comments on previous shows of how this roster is not going to look the same in February or March when it comes down to. But here's a crazy thing. And I mentioned on our last show with Jason, I said, I don't think they can wait that long. If they wait till the end of December, they're going to be out of everything. Isaiah, you just said that the other day too. They wait, they're in trouble. And it was kind of like a foreshadowing of this, horrible streak that they're on right now. And I asked the question. I mean, yeah, you might be overpaying, but are they really overpaying? Because doesn't seem like Chuck's got to be very creative. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of moves that can be made with the cap situation.
So that's a fact. I mean, the cap does hold him back from making certain moves. This isn't the best time of the year to make moves. I mean, this is the time of the year where it's tough. You want Evander Kane, they'll pay half his salary. You can get Evander Kane. I mean, I'm just saying, these are the guys, that are available. Like, you can get Evander Kane. Maybe you can get somebody from Montreal when the next guy comes in and says, all right, we need to change things. Maybe there's somebody you could get from Buffalo, but it's not easy to make a deal right now. So, but Chuck's been very quiet. And I think that doesn't bode well for Vigneault, and it doesn't bode well for himself either, because he was so ultra aggressive in the offseason. So he kind of set a standard. And I think he had prodding from his bosses, but I think it was a situation we all knew it was a lot of players and it takes time to gel. And because of injuries and everything else, they haven't gelled. So now you're looking at it like, okay, they filled in pieces that looked like they were going to be good fits. But then as things were playing out, like Nate Thompson as an example, sounds fine getting Nate Thompson, but when you see him every game for 16 games, you realize how dirt slow he is. And yes, while he's good on the PK and he dresses well, he's not helping you win games. That whole fourth line isn't scoring anything. Yet the coach continues to put the fourth line out even midway in third periods when they're down 2 goals. Makes no sense. Zach McEwen will always look like he could score a goal, but he can't score goals at the NHL level. He could score a few at the AHL level because he could actually just brutalize the guys into the point where he could score a goal. So again, it was such fool's gold a few days ago when it's like, hey, look at Zach McEwen. Let's put him up on the third line. But then you put up on the third line, you're like, what are we doing? You can't, you know what I mean? It's like, yes, it's a nice thing for the kid, but it doesn't help your team. So I don't even think the Hayes injury is what's killing them, because they haven't had Kevin Hayes. Even Kevin Hayes halfway through last season wasn't great. So what are you really missing from Kevin Hayes? Like, it's like, yes, you're missing a second line presence center that you could talk about, but actually when the rubber meets the road, we haven't seen Kevin Hayes in a while. So that's a whole different subject. But Ellis, Ellis you're missing. And the problem is, Justin Braun can't play on that top pairing because, if he plays 40 games at the top pairing, you're going to start burning him out. And then, again, on the road, if you notice, the other teams are definitely setting up so they can have their top line against the Flyers' third pairing or against the Flyers' fourth line. And if the Flyers lose an offensive zone faceoff, they go the other way, and a guy like Thompson and McEwen's a decent skater, and then whoever else is on that line generally can't catch up, and they always have an on-man rush. They don't always score on it, but they know they can get chances that way. These are problems that are possibly solvable if you had a coach that was willing now to shake up all the lines, but he doesn't want to necessarily do that yet. And so, and again, Michael Therrien should be fired. He's not. That's on AV. There's no reason not to fire this guy, as bad as it is. If he wants to take the fault for the power play, that's great. But what is it actually going to take? Is it going to take when they're the worst in the league? Like, is that what it's going to take? Yeah. When they're 31st, then you're going to make a, so that's the first proactive thing that you can do right away is make that change. And you could have done it like today is a good example because, they're not playing the Islanders tomorrow. You'd have a lot of time to work on it. Everybody's always saying there's not enough practice time. They're getting practice time, but when you practice the same old thing and you believe that you're going to just come out of it magically, it doesn't always happen. Most times it doesn't.
Yeah, Dan, I'm going to go to you in a second. It harkens back to the PK for all those years when they just couldn't kill a penalty. But I think along these lines, we had 2 former players. The organization basically trashed the team. We had Scott Hartnell say they were soft. They don't really have anything going for them. The power play stinks. They're only good because of Carter Hart. And then you had Bundy chiming on and saying more or less the same thing and saying, who is the heir apparent to Claude Giroux, who's going to be 34 in January? I mean, this speaks to the longer term view and harkens back to Dan's original point is, well, if we don't have these higher level prospects like Aho and Svechnikov and some of these ones like the other teams have, like what is to follow? How do you see a pathway to a Stanley Cup as opposed to where they're at now, where maybe they're going to fight and scratch and claw and maybe they'll get in the playoffs?
Yeah, that's the question that I'm trying to answer. And I've been a Flyers, even though I haven't lived in Philly in a long time, I've had season tickets for the last, 6-7 years. And now I find myself wondering, like, am I going to keep these season tickets next year? Like, probably not, quite honestly, because in the past I had them because I was like, you know what, I want these tickets because maybe, I think they're on an upper trajectory. They might get to the Cup one of these years. And And now it's like, I don't see that. It's a pain in the butt for me to sell them. Then the Flyers come out, and on Black Friday, they're discounting December tickets 50% for people online. Like, that's a slap in the face to season ticket holders who, it's hard enough to sell tickets as a season ticket holder, but now you're going to discount the tickets 50% for people to come in and buy them underneath the price that you bought them for as a season ticket holder. It's the first time I remember them ever doing that. And, with the coaching thing, I think, Russ, you mentioned maybe, okay, they could fire Michel Therrien.
Yeah.
To me, and the sense I get is that this is Vigneault's crew. And they asked Vigneault about the power play and is he happy with what Therrien's doing? And he says, the buck stops with me. Like, I make the ultimate decisions. And now maybe that stops if Fletcher goes to him and says, hey, we've got to fire Michel.
That's what should have happened.
Right. But, part of me wonders if it's like, Vigneault came in and it was, these are my guys.
I'm sure it was. But we're at the point, like in a company where, the CEO is going to walk in and say, hey, listen, I know he's your guy. You got to fire him.
And that's what happened. That's why Hextall was fired. He wouldn't fire Dave Hextall.
Right.
Part of it. Right. So is that, does Vigneault say, you know what, if you're going to, you can't get rid of Therrien. You're going to, and then they'll say, okay, we're just going to get rid of you.
Well, they're not going to say that now in the corporate environment that quickly because they're going to have to pay him. They'll say, listen, if you want to walk away from your job, go ahead. We got another guy we could hire. But
they would just they would say we're firing Therrien. You didn't have any choice over it.
That's it.
That seems like that would create an even worse situation if you've got.
Well, I mean, could it get any worse? Really?
It's a good point.
It would shake things up.
It seems so early in the season, and to me, I know what you're saying about Hayes, that we haven't really seen him, but I still think that a healthy Kevin Hayes would make a reasonable difference on this team.
Do you think he's going to be healthy this year? I don't.
And that's part of why I don't even know if he'll be healthy next year. That's part of why it's kind of upsetting. Is like, I mean, their center depth is just so bad. Like everyone's playing above where they should be playing. And the Morgan Frost thing, like, to me, I totally agree. He should be playing with Giroux. But even if you don't want to play him even strength, put him on the power play with Giroux.
He has a great shot.
Watch Morgan Frost on the power play, and the passes that he makes, him and Giroux are far and away the two best passers on the team. The feed that Frost set up to Ristolainen was just beautiful.
Yeah, nice.
He positioned himself so that he could see the entire ice when he got the pass. He laid it perfectly back to Ristolainen, who had all that space to come in and blast that one.
Well, I mean, they
at least put Frost and Giroux on the power play together.
Yes.
That's one way of solving it.
I mean, even last year, Farabee was their best passer on the power play, and this year he's on the second power play. So I get it. Everybody has struggled at some point. But it's not all on one player. It is about the way the parts are. And Dan's right. Have those guys on the same line. Have them on the same power play. He's right. I mean, no question.
Yeah, I totally agree with shortening the bench. You were talking about that this morning with Rachel on your Locked On Flyers podcast. And why don't you give us a little plug? Tell us what you got going on with Locked On Flyers.
So Locked On Flyers, it's a daily podcast. You can go and catch it on a lot of different places, but if you go to Twitter, type in Locked On Flyers, you could find the podcast on that. Also, this time of year, since it's Cyber Monday, you could go to Amazon.com, get my Flyers book, Flyers Images of Sports, or any of my other books, or DM me, and I could, autograph and send you a book. So I just have to throw that out there as an independent author.
And Russ's books are great, so folks should definitely go check them out. Like, fantastic stuff.
Agreed.
Origins of Baseball, or what was that?
Pioneers of Baseball. That's the one that goes way back in the history of baseball, or Baseball's Best Rookies, which we updated. The second update has Bryce Harper in it. It's got Shohei Ohtani in it. We did not get Pete Alonso in it because Pete Alonso won it after the time that I had to get it in. So we could, you can't risk it, because you figured he was going to win, but what if he didn't? Right. You never know how a vote's going to go. So we couldn't put him in, but we did get a lot of other key guys in there, and DeGrom's in there, and Ryan Howard's in there. So there's a lot of good players in there.
Good. And today, in fact, I don't know if it was your account. Someone was quote tweeting, name a pitcher
Right.
And I put one of my favorites just because of his style. Of course, the Hall of Famer Juan Marichal.
Oh, yeah. Juan Marichal was fun to watch.
Oh, my God. That was a great
Although
era.
he almost killed the player with a bat, Johnny Roseborough.
Johnny Roseborough, yes. Yeah, his famous brawl.
But other than that, he was a great pitcher.
It was good. Yeah. So getting back to hockey. Because, yeah.
That's fine.
So, all right. Now, I put a little quiz out there for everybody, multiple choice, about what should the Flyers do. And it was spurred on by Sam Carchidi. And now Carchidi has a new meaning. To go full Sam Carchidi is for the Flyers to trade Giroux and rebuild it. And
they're not going to do that.
The thing is, what are they going to do first? Are they going to make some kind of coaching change, or are they going to make a trade to fill in a hole? God knows they need a center, but they also need a veteran defenseman. Those are a minimum of two.
Okay, so knowing Chuck a little bit, he's going to try and make the trade first. That's going to be the first thing. He's not made the trade. He's not talked about anything close. He's not reporting anything, so I'm assuming nothing's close. But he's going to try and make the trade first. The second thing he's going to do is make some sort of coaching change, which I think would be Turian first. Then it would be AV after that. With Giroux, you're in a situation where even if you believe you want to rebuild, you still have to have some guys around, or someone like Dan is not going to buy tickets unless he's full in on this rebuild. And it's going to be hard to get everybody in on a rebuild when you just told them last year, hey, we're close. We just have to get a couple guys. That's a tough bridge to all of a sudden do in a year. You have to sort of build towards that. So with Giroux, I think they're going to go through the season with him. The only way they don't is if Giroux says, I want out, and then they'll trade him for assets. But if he doesn't say he wants out, they're going to go through the season and they either sign him by the end of the season or try and sign him over the summer, which, he probably will stay for a little less money. I think that's what he'll do. So I don't think Sam's even remotely close to being right on this. Now, a rebuild would be nice, but it should have happened a couple of years ago. Like, all this offseason stuff were patches and hope that, hey, if this works, we're right back in it. I think the part that not a lot of us understood, like, I didn't pick the Flyers for the playoffs. Why didn't I pick them for the playoffs? Because I didn't believe all these players would gel in time. That was the reason. That was my main reason. Now, I didn't even realize Columbus was going to be better like the way they are. I didn't think Laine was going to come out of his slumber with Jake, but he has. So they're better. One thing I did say, though, was everybody got better in the Metro. And now it's the hardest division. So now the Devils are better. The Rangers are better. Even Columbus is better. So now, and Pittsburgh is staying, they're holding their own too, as you said before, Isaiah. So when you look at all that, then you realize that's the part when the Flyers made all these moves that they didn't count on. They didn't count on the Metro being the best division in hockey, but it is. Will it stay that way? I don't know. But I picked early in the season that 5 teams were going to come out of the Metro, and, it very well may happen. So because of that, things didn't go to plan. So now they do have to sort of formulate a new plan, and they have to do it quickly. And these next couple of days should be the time that they decide what to do. The problem is, like Dan was talking about player development, even I couldn't have told you it wasn't going to go well in Lehigh Valley, but it's not going well. So now, with the exception of the guys called up, and of course York is on COVID anyhow, but he's been okay this year. You wouldn't call him up. There is nobody to call up. There's nobody you would call up that would say they could change our team or at least fill in and do a really admirable job, because they can't do it down there. And their part of that is because that crew down there, coaching-wise, is not doing a good job. One of the other things you heard me, well, you didn't hear me say because I tape a day ahead of time, but I'll say it anyhow, is sometimes my days of the week get screwed up with that.
Preview then.
But a preview, yeah, preview.
Put it on 1.5.
It was always nice. The Flyers were smart to always have like a John Paddock around with all that experience. So like someone like LaPerriere, a brand new coach, could fall back on that. The staff down there is very young, very young. And so, you're talking about guys that don't have that breadth of experience, like 15, 20 years of coaching experience. So now Lehigh's suffering. So now player development is suffering.
Is that a coaching problem down there? I mean, is that what more or
So
less
far,
what
it
you're
looks
saying?
that way, yeah.
Okay, Dan?
Yeah, when the Forster injury is really unfortunate. I mean, there's a kid who, I still think, has the potential to be a pretty good goal scorer at the NHL level. But now he's out the rest of the year and he's going to be recovering, it looks like, from shoulder surgery. Yeah. So, that's a big issue. The Giroux thing's fascinating to me because I don't know. I mean, I feel like he has a lot of value on the open market. And well, I mean, on the trade market. So if things continue to really go south, and this team is like not even close to a playoff team at the deadline, and I don't know, I'm not Claude Giroux, but I imagine that he's probably frustrated by a lot of what I'm sure he likes being in Philadelphia, but I got to think there's some frustration on his side of seeing what has happened. And, I don't know. I'm not in his head, so I don't know. But I have to think there's some reasonable chance that he thinks to himself, like, do I really want to stay here for the rest of my career the way things are trending, or do I want to maybe go somewhere else and win a Stanley Cup?
I'll give you the equation that kind of runs for me is kind of like with Claude Giroux. So let's say you did trade him and you get all these assets. Is Comcast willing to take like a 20% hit in attendance that already isn't selling out, 20% off of that for the next couple of years? I'm not sure they are.
Do you think
what's going to happen?
I love Claude Giroux, but do you think people are buying tickets because of Claude Giroux?
No, but I think if he's not there, it gives you one less person that you went to go see.
I guess. I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm honestly not sure about it.
I see Giroux jerseys. I do.
Oh, no. I have 2 Claude Giroux jerseys, but for me personally, if this team is a disaster at the deadline, like if they don't trade Giroux and then he goes and signs somewhere else, I'll be a lot more pissed off than if they would have traded him and gotten a first-round pick and a prospect.
Okay, so I'll ask you this way, and then Chef, I know you're being patient.
No, go ahead.
So let's say they get Tomas Hertl in that trade, and they get a prospect and a pick. Does that make you show up now again next year because Tomas Hertl's there, and you're hoping that he could score 35 goals, or are you going to say, I still want to see what they're going to do, and you're going to still stay away?
Yeah, probably that's not going to make a huge difference. But I guess at this point, like for me, I'm already thinking I'm not going to be back next year. Rather, Claude Giroux, I don't think, because his play is going to keep diminishing. Like, I don't think he's going to put them over the top and like winning a cup. So,
but he's not hurting them.
No, of course not. He's been their best forward this year.
He's the best player. Yeah.
So, I mean, but if you can get I don't know if you can. It depends on what the market is. But if they get a first-round pick and a really good prospect, which might be a little out of the question, but it just depends on who else. The other question, I guess, you just could retain salary if someone wants to take him that doesn't have any cap room. You just retain salary the rest of the year. But then you could. I know this doesn't happen very often, but you could trade him and re-sign him in the offseason. I know it doesn't happen.
Good, but we all talk about that, and you're right. I think I've heard 1 or 2 cases in the last 5 years. It's unofficial, folks, but I'm just saying,
Yeah, no. Chef?
Well, I was going to say, I understand where you're coming from, though, but look at it from a strictly business point of view. I'll give you the chef's perspective of it. Like, you go out to a place and you go out to your favorite restaurant and they have that staple on that menu, that hot roast beef sandwich that you like so much and you've always come to see. And okay, so you may not always order it while you're there, but at least it's there. It's your backup, So now you go out to this place and it's a new guy took over and he's like, well, we're not going to do that anymore. And they take that off the menu. They lose a customer big time. And they might lose more than one customer. And I think that's the whole Comcast perspective. But also, I'll pose a question to you, Russ. I posed to a couple other guys before. Is Giroux, is he going to be like the Bobby Clark of our time? Do you think he moves on? Okay, let's say we're all wrong and he stays here and he finishes his career in Philly. Is he somebody that's going to be moving forward with the organization and maybe as a scout and then work his way up the ladder?
I don't get that feeling. But it still doesn't mean he can't be your most beloved player in the last 15 years.
Okay. I was just wondering.
Yeah. I don't get that feel from him. He is smart. He definitely helps players on his team. But I just don't get that feel like he's going to want to be a scout and be out on the road doing that. If they gave him something in the organization similar to like what Rod Gilbert had with the Rangers, where he's sort of like there and everybody gets to see him and he promotes things, he would do that.
Okay.
And you know, they've had guys do that with the Flyers.
Yeah.
You know, the Hound, maybe he takes over for Bob Kelly.
Yeah. Okay, I can see that.
Yeah.
Russ, when you think about it, we talk about the Metro, how everybody improved. How did they do it? I mean, I keep thinking about what the Rangers did. I caught a lot of heat. I put that on the Twitter a couple of years ago when the Rangers came out with that famous letter and said, hey, look, you know, we're going to do a rebuild. We're going to miss a lot of players that you've loved, and we appreciate it through the years. In other words, we're going to suck, but we're going to try and rebuild this thing. What is to keep the Flyers from doing that? And because you look at how the components of the team, it looks like they're headed in the same direction as that Ranger team. And
all right,
they don't have the opportunity to draft a Lafreniere or a Capo Caco. You know,
I don't think you can do that with this GM.
No,
I don't think he will make enough of those kinds of trades to put you in that position. It takes a different kind of GM. Like Gordon did a good job doing that. He was fairly, new in the league in the sense that he had been an assistant GM and had seen a lot. And so fulfilling that role wasn't that hard for him. Chuck has never had to fill that role. He didn't have to do it in Minnesota. I didn't have to do it here. So now you're asking him to do that. Chuck's never been good with the cap. So all of a sudden you're now asking him to become a non-cap team and get out of cap trouble. Do you feel like Chuck Fletcher could get out of cap trouble like Hextall did? I don't.
Well, and he worked under Ray Shearer when Ray was trying to do a similar thing in New Jersey. So, I mean, and he worked with Bob Clark. I mean, yeah, he hasn't demonstrated in the top position, but as a
no,
GM,
he hasn't demonstrated at all from Minnesota or here. He was always in cap trouble.
Well, he tended to take over teams and build teams that were veteran laden.
Right. So he's not necessarily the right guy for a rebuild. That's my basic point. It takes a certain kind of GM to do that. So I think you'd have to go GM shopping too then.
What would you prefer the Flyers do to get on a Stanley Cup contention course? You're their general manager. Put it that way.
Well, goaltending's good, although I'm still on the fence about Martin Jones. Just have to be honest about it.
He's a backup,
I know, but again, they put a lot of resources into just a backup. They used to get Elliotte cheaper for the same or better results. Like Jones started out great, but he is losing games now. And I thought a couple of the goals yesterday wasn't great. All that said,
yeah,
because they had two young guys in the minors. Like I feel like Sandstrom, he could be my backup, and it's only going to cost me, an entry level deal. So,
yeah, but if Carter Hart's not in the picture, it doesn't matter anyway, right?
No, he'll be in the picture. What do you if you're rebuilding Carter Hart, you can't rebuild without Carter Hart because I don't know if Sandstrom's a 1A. So if you're rebuilding, Carter Hart is in the middle of that.
Right.
And so you have Carter Hart. But I'm just saying now I've put so much resource into the goaltending position that I have to now divest of that. I have to divest of Kevin Hayes. I have to, and that's not going to be easy. I have to, you're now, I'm looking at it and I'm like, I can't do it in just one off season. So I am going to have to sort of reset it because there's no way I could rebuild it, down to the chassis like the Rangers did. But again, the Rangers got a chance to cheat because they knew they were getting Panarin. So once they knew they were getting Panarin, and I said it the minute they got him, like the rebuild's over. Like they'll still take a little while, but when you get a player like Panarin, that's a game changer. And the Flyers don't have a player like Panarin.
That's true, but they also overpaid for Trouba, who ended up being more of a second pair guy.
Yeah, but he's now, if you look at what Trouba's doing now, overpay or not, he's been really, really good for last year and this year too. So they could afford to allocate those resources because they have other guys like Lindgren that's not making that much, and Keandre Miller who's not making that much. So they can get away with that. You know what I mean? That's right now the Flyers you would have to really have a fire sale, and I don't know if you get the right assets back. So I think they would have to do a reset. I don't think you could do a full rebuild.
Dan?
So at the beginning of the season, when all the Jack Eichel stuff was going on, I didn't really want the Flyers to go after him because in my mind, there were some questions with the injury, and his timeline was such that I didn't think he was going to help the team this year to win a cup. Now, in retrospect, when I look back and see how everything's happened, I feel like I wish that they had gone after Jack Eichel, because he's the kind of guy that if it's a home run try, if he's healthy, and you probably would have had to have given up, a first round pick and maybe Morgan Frost and I don't know who, I don't know who,
another good player,
Hayes or something like that, or something you'd have to free up some salary, but you probably could have come up with a comparative offer. I kind of now looking back, wish the Flyers had gone after Eichel.
I think it's fair to say that, but I also still think there's a fair amount of risk with Jack Eichel that we don't know about yet. We don't know if he'll be back even close to that timeline. I looked at the timeline, and while that one UFC guy came back in that timeline, there's another UFC guy that I brought up, I can't remember his name, that had the same operation or similar. Nobody's is ever the same, right? But a similar operation, and kept saying, I'll be back, and he'd be back in November, and now it's like, I'll be back in 2022. Like, you don't know, because the healing of everybody is different, and that's where you can't pin it down. So it's possible they don't even get Jack Eichel for the playoffs. There is a possibility of that, but they took a risk and figured we're going to roll the dice because we think we are. I think what you're saying, Dan, for the Flyers is if they knew there was a chance they couldn't get him for this year, but they could get him, that would be fine. But that would take the guts to basically say, okay, we're going to give up these assets. We're still going to try and win, but if we don't win, we could fall back on this. I don't think Chuck's the guy to do that. I think
Chef,
they have a guy that would have done that in Dean Lombardi, who's in the organization. But he, once in a while, he would get a lot of static for doing some of these high-risk deals. In retrospect, if you just let Dean make deals and not have to worry about the cap, because that's where Dean gave out too much money, he could make a better deal. But I'm not advocating that. I'm just giving you an example.
Okay. Chef?
No, I was just thinking that it's easy to look back and say Eichel is somebody who's going to eventually probably have to go down that route of neck surgery. I just don't see how you can't guesstimate something that's going to happen like that earlier on, even when, I don't think he's going to – there's no – in my mind, knowing what they've told me, and I'm not even having close to what he's having – is that you're going to be functional in that amount of time. It's going to be the same thing as like Hayes with Hayes' injury. Let's just say he's all better. We saw in the past other players like Giroux and several others that have had core muscle surgery, and they're not the same for a while. It took G almost a whole year and a half to get back to the way he was. And so, I'm thinking that's a core injury. I had a surgery there.
No, I'm pretty sure that's what
you couldn't move. Yeah. And then now I'm thinking about, I'm trying to compare that in an Eichel perspective, like with your neck is going to be a lot more sensitive area for you, the turning and basically learning how to navigate skating again with your head, because your head's got to be on a swivel in that sport. So I didn't, I wasn't too keen on it as well, like Dan said, but looking back at it, I kind of still not sold on it completely. To each their own, but I do agree with one thing you said, though. I don't think Chuck is right for a rebuild. I think it has to, if it doesn't come down, if something doesn't drastically change this year, maybe next year he gets a little bit of leeway, but I don't think much longer. We won't be seeing him this time next year if things aren't fixed and they're not on the right trajectory, at least.
Yeah. Well, Russ, I know you got to get rolling. You have one of your many shows to do. You want to make a final statement, but you want anything to give the folks at home listening to this some hope, maybe a little optimism?
Yeah, I'm actually doing another show. It's not even my own. Somebody else invited me on too. But I will say this.
Guy.
Yeah. people want to vent. I think that's what it is. But although this is Flyers related, so it's more prospect related. But as far as the Flyers go, obviously the season's not over. They're not in the shape that the Islanders are in. It's not like that. So it is possible to turn it around. Again, I don't know how many more losses it'll take to change the course a little or do something to kind of jolt these guys to try and turn it around. But I do think it is possible. They do have a real good player structure. These guys should be scoring. They definitely could have a better power play. I do think they should employ a few things I said, and there's probably a few things I didn't say that I don't know that they should employ that they aren't. I think there's a little bit of too much stubbornness with the coach, and I think someone should sit him down and sort of go through it and have him justify everything he's doing because a lot of it isn't working. So I do think it is still possible to turn the ship around, but you got to turn it around soon. It's not like the old days because this division is a buzzsaw and you don't want to hemorrhage too many points. But again, no, I don't think they're out of it yet.
Okay, fair enough. Russ, where can people find you and tell us about all your shows?
Sure. So they can find me at Sportsology or sportsology.com is my website. Amazon.com. I certainly have a profile there. I go on SiriusXM a couple times a week. Off the Post is on SoundCloud and Spotify and a few other services. Hockey Buzz Buzzcast I do every day, 1 to 2 o'clock, or they're somewhere close to that. And then the Locked On Flyers podcast I do about 4 of them a week. So, and that I told people how to find that earlier. If you follow my account at Sportsology, you'll find it. So that's it. And then Elite Prospects, full press coverage. And GTS is another website for collectibles. So those are all the other things I do. Now I emptied the tank.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. You emptied the tank here tonight too.
You letting me.
All right, fantastic, Russ. Look forward to having you on again soon.
Thanks,
Russ.
All right, you got
Thanks, Russ.
You heard the man. Let's get some reactions. Chef, you first.
Well, it's confirming a lot of suspicions you have, I guess. It's nothing he didn't say that was too out of line or extraordinary that we haven't said ourselves. So I think it wasn't much of a surprise. Except maybe that possibly they could turn it around. I don't know if they can. I don't know if they have the manpower up with them, and I don't know if there's manpower in the minors for them. But everything else was pretty much on point. I got a lot of respect for Russ. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Yeah, look, the Flyers have 6 games. They're supposed to have 7. In case you haven't heard, they had a game scheduled with the Islanders for tomorrow night, got canceled, COVID protocols. So much for thinking that this was all behind us. We're going to need recovery, and that is their best chance to get through this thing. But on Wednesday, they play the Rangers, and then they have this previously mentioned on our last show, 5 games in 7 nights starting on Monday. I don't think we're going to have a show that week starting December the 5th. I'm not sure. And after that, that's 6 more games. And, boy, I really don't know. According to Money Puck, they have an 11% chance of making the playoffs, for what that's worth. It's going to be December 1st tomorrow. So it has more currency than it did, say, a month ago. That's for sure. Dan, what are your thoughts?
I probably captured kind of like the way I'm feeling earlier in the show. I'm just not very optimistic right now about things. And just, again, because I don't see that light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe in terms of a Stanley Cup, right?
Right.
Maybe
but that's what counts, right?
Yeah, maybe because I'm already writing off this year. I mean, with Hayes and Ellis out, it's very hard for me to see this team making the playoffs in this division, barring some kind of magic that Chuck Fletcher can pull off. So that means I'm looking more towards next year. And if Hayes and Ellis are back and healthy, okay, now I'm thinking, all right, well, where do we stand? And then it's like, oh, well, I don't know what to make of Morgan Frost, because he clearly, you can tell with Morgan Frost that the talent is there. He makes passes and he reads the ice so well, right? But it's more a question of, okay, is he the kind of guy, though, that if you're going to be a second or third line center in the NHL, you got to win some puck battles in the corners, right? You got to get in there. You're not going to be able to make the passes and score the nice goals unless you can get the puck yourself to begin with, And we're seeing kind of the same thing a little bit with Elias Pettersson in Vancouver this year. He's kind of struggling in a certain respect, and they're both kind of like slightly built guys. But, in any event, you're talking about thinking about if Hayes and Ellis are back, is this a cup team? And it's still tough for me to see. So I don't know. I'm just right now I need the team to the team or the staff to kind of do something to bring me out of my doldrums, and they've got to prove it. They got to do something. So we'll see what happens against the Rangers. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of with the way that the salary cap is right now. It's hard to make a lot of changes. So I don't know. I feel like the best hope right now of completely turning things around is bringing in a new coaching staff. But are they going to do that? And if so, what are the chances it'll actually be successful? I don't know.
Yeah, that's tough because, unless it's an interim situation, that's the last coach that Chuck Fletcher would likely have a chance to hire. So, how willing is he going to do that, Chef?
Yeah, I was just going to touch it. And what Dan said, too, about getting Ellison and Hayes back. And that, are they a cup contending team? Don't know, but we're talking about the best versions of themselves. We're not even going to get the best versions of themselves when they come back. We're going to be recovering. So, I mean, even then, you're still up in the air about what you're getting back at least.
Yeah, I mean, for me, they're a lunch pail team at their very best that could be a solid playoff contender, should make it most of the time, and then get blown out in like the second round. That's where their ceiling is. I'm with the ex-players on this one. Bundy really spoke to me when he said, if Claude Giroux is your best player and he's going to be 34 in January, I just can't get past that. I say blow it the F up. And even if Fletcher is not the right guy for that, then get the right guy for that. Yep. Because this organization was all about winning a cup. And if they just want to put butts in seats and be a playoff team and be the one that I just described that makes the playoffs, they're kind of exciting, but they're never going to win anything. Well, we waited all this time. We can wait a couple more years to try and replicate what the Toronto did. For all their faults, they're a really good team. They got high-end talent, maybe too much high-end talent, need to spread it out. But they have top-level players. Flyers have no top-level players. What the Rangers did, what the Hurricanes have, the kind of players like Aho and Svechnikov, the Flyers don't really have anything like that. They have the opportunity to draft Aho. A lot of teams in the league missed out on that opportunity. We drafted Konechny. It was a nice pick. He's a good player. Aho would be a game changer. That's the draft. Okay, I got heat for that. I think they really ought to go big on this. I don't think you can salvage this beyond making them a playoff team and nothing more. I just don't see it. I can't get past that. Like, I want to be honest. When I came out in praise of what the Rangers did, and some guy called me a Rangers fan, I'm in my 52nd year now of following the Flyers. So I've won. I've seen the Cups. I went to the one parade in '75. It was great. I'm not well preserved, kind of, sort of, maybe. But I mean, it's just I can't look past that. That is really where the rubber meets the road for me. All the stats are nice and everything.
You said. Let me ask you a question. Ask you a question. You said he's not the right GM for the rebuild. And I agree with you.
If he's not.
I don't think he is. And let's just say he isn't. Who would you pursue out there? Was it Dan Was Dan the one that said years before they hired Chuck that
Zito.
it should have been Zito, right?
Zito.
Yeah, it was you, right?
Bold.
Yeah, so, and look what he's done. So if they'd have listened to Dan, 3-4 years ago?
I don't really have any problems with what Chuck Fletcher's done. I mean, I like some of the kids he's drafted, and I like the moves he's made in the offseason, and he's trying to win now. I think he's a smart guy, and honestly, I think he's learned from the mistakes that he's made in the past. So I'm not sure it's fair to say that he, that he couldn't lead a rebuild. I think he might be able to, but it's a tough situation now with some of the guys they've got signed long term, and it's very difficult to rebuild in this day and age. I mean, because the other thing is, so let's say that they tank, right? I mean, which they're not going to be able to be worse than Arizona or Buffalo or, some of these teams this year, Ottawa, Arizona, Montreal. The problem in this day and age is, even if you're the worst team in the league, you only have a 25% chance of getting like Shane Wright, for example, and who's probably going to be the number one pick. So I think it's tough to rebuild. Look at what Buffalo's done. They've had all these high picks and it really hasn't worked out for them, right? Because Rasmus Dahlin is okay, but he's not like a superstar. Jack Eichel didn't work out.
With their culture is
no, their culture is really bad. But I don't know. Has it worked for Ottawa? Ottawa, do they have the worst record in the league right now?
Ottawa's got some really good players, I tell you.
I know, but
they just need a goaltender. That would help, and somebody to play with Shabbat. Every time I say Shabbat, I feel like saying Shabbat Shalom. But
I still remember, whenever I think of Shabbat, I think of him playing with Phil Myers in the World Junior Championships, and Myers got injured that year. But watching those two together, and I'm like, man, Phil Myers is fantastic. Like, those guys were so good together, and Shabbat went one way, and Myers just kind of never really developed all that much in the NHL. There's still time, but
it's a shame.
There is, there is. But I tell you, after all this time of trying to retool on the fly with Hextall, and you know what? Like I said, he whiffed a couple times in the draft. If you grab McCarr, if you grab Aho, and it's a different ballgame. But that's the draft. You don't know.
Yeah.
But I'd rather have a chance at these picks, and that's where I could see a guy like Tocchet being a coach who could handle younger guys. Maybe AV is a closer like Laviolette, and I just don't see him going through anything like that at all. Look, he didn't want to be here last year. That's crystal clear. And he certainly is not going to go softly into the night and I think he'll probably get fired this year if things don't go well, unless the Flyers turn things around. AV's in his last year, in my opinion. You agree with that, Dan?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if he seems like he wants to be here this year.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell, right? I don't know. And it's just a weird dynamic. I don't know what the pressures are in the organization. And as Russ mentioned, they're still going to pay him for, a number more years, even if they get rid of him. So I don't think that Vigneault's the right guy. I don't think the system's working with this group of players. And so, but I just don't know if they're ready to fire him or not. I can't answer the question. I think that if things, obviously there comes a time, we saw in Montreal, like there comes a time if things just keep going downhill, he'll definitely be fired. They'll have no other choice. But I don't know if they kind of have a so-so season, they win some games here and there. I don't know what'll happen.
I think these next 6 games, after that 5-game and 7-night thing, after the Rangers, and then they got the 5 games, I think we're going to know a hell of a lot more, to be honest with you. And we might have some updates on injuries. If they try to salvage this year, they have to do something at center, and hopefully it'll be something that'll be for the longer term, because their center plays flat out not good enough. And they're going to need another defenseman, whether Ellis is here or not, because, Sealer and Yandel, Yandel really needs a guy like Braun with him, or else it's There's a reason he was out on the street. So anyway, the Flyers after 20 games are 8-4. They have the games coming up that we mentioned. And that's what we got for you. I wish we had a better story to tell you, but we try to keep it real here.
Isaiah, what is the name of this episode again? Did you have one yet? Or it could be the epitome of mediocrity, 8-4.
Yeah, 8-4. Yeah, OU 8-1-2, 8-4.
Yeah.
No, Flyers critical stretch is what we're going with. I might have to change it between now and then. But with that, we're going to get final statements and some social media coordinates from our crew here. Dan, why don't we get you on board first?
Yeah, no, I'm just hoping that I see something either from the GM or the players or something over the next few weeks, to give me some hope. So that's kind of what I need this team to jumpstart me a little bit. But folks can follow me on Twitter at dsilver88. And I'm going to be in Arizona next week for a work conference. But so I'm probably not going to be able to watch the games while I'm out there. But hopefully this team can start to heat up a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely, Chef.
Well, let's just say this. I look forward to seeing what's going to happen. Hopefully they can do something. Maybe is it about time for those closed door meetings with the team? We should be hearing that anytime soon. So, but I love my team and I just want them to be better. And I think that's what you're seeing in Flyers Nation all out there. They want them to be better. And I'll just say, I know it could possibly be his last season. So Claude Giroux deserves a little bit better than what he's getting right now. And hopefully maybe he's the one that can talk to some guys and get their asses motivated. But I don't know. So, but you can argue with me about that fact that Chef to the Left B on Twitter, and I'll gladly respond.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, I'm Isaiah. I can be followed on Twitter at Isaiah, ISAIAH_520. Isaiah, don't forget the _520 on Twitter. I told you about the O&B Puckcast at O&B Puck at O&B Puck. And rate and subscribe. We really do appreciate it. And just before we go, just remember, Jim South Street, 400 South Street, 40 years of the best cheesesteaks, hoagies, fries, you name it, that you could ever ask for in the grandest Philadelphia tradition. And if you live down there and you can't get over it, no problems. I use DoorDash. So just remember, Jim South Street, 400 South Street in Philadelphia, PA. And until next time, everybody, take care.